What's up guys, welcome back to another video. So in this video I want to talk about God and the trials you face, and specifically like when you're in those trials and understanding that God can take away things as well as give you things. So the important thing is these are trials from God, and it's important for you to understand to not take these personally and understand that God orchestrates everything. And just like Job submitted, you have to submit, in the sense that like Job, he got taken everything away from him, but he was also given double, what he had before, or tenfold, whatever you want to say, what he had before, after his trials. And that is the blessing of God is, God might take away some things and it might hurt, but God gives and takes. And everything he does is righteous in that aspect, and you just must submit to it. And God always does what's best for you anyway, so you don't really need to worry about what your situation is when you're on a faith journey, because God always has the perfect plan for you. And so you don't really need to worry about all the details. And if you in a sense lost something, like God took something away from you that you thought was precious, then you need to also understand that he'll always replace things with better things, and there's always a plan for everything. It doesn't matter if you lose people or whatever, material things. If you'd like to donate, in the description, helps very much, thank you. And one-on-ones in the description as well if you'd like to discuss with me in private. But anyways, I just wanted to say in this video specifically about what God really wants us to is to emulate people like Peter, Job and Abraham, who were truly able to submit to God and have true faith and belief. And they're able to, they weren't perfect in terms of their disposition necessarily, not like we can be now with the truth, but what they had was true belief in those times, which was very rare. But it's even rarer nowadays for God to find somebody who's proper. And that's why we have this corruption problem. He could still find people back in those days like Abraham, Moses, Job, Peter, some of these characters that did things for God. And had that true submission. That's what God is looking for. And even if it hurts and you have fears and everything else, it's important to still go through the process and submit and do what God wants you to do, and not go west when he wants you to go east and do something. That's the most important part you can do when you're in that, and just cultivating that. I think searching for motivation in the stories of specifically Job in the Bible, as well as Abraham and Peter, those are probably the three best, and you can find it in the Word as well. But those stories are probably the most motivating for your belief journey and faith journey, in the sense to understand what you should be, what God requires of us is to emulate these people in their belief and faith, and walk that path of submission and understanding God's orchestrations, and coming to understand God and how he walks in our life with us, and that you don't have to worry about all the details, and everything is already done in a sense, and you don't have to worry about everything. But that's all I really want to say in this video, is what we should emulate and how God works in these aspects. If there's a will, there's a way. Thank you for watching. God bless. Amen. See you in the next one.